Hey, what's going on, yo? So, I'm making another video. This is a old power supply that I got out of I think it's a compact PC. It was really old. It was late 90s, early 2000s. It's got this, it's definitely smaller than your average ATX PC, but it will fit in the machine like it. It's just not maybe as wide and big. It's got this weird fan thing that kind of sticks out of it. So, what I've done with this is I have way too many. Accidentally dropped the phone. Haha. I have way too many of these power supplies sitting around the house, and I kind of need one. And I do have a Radio Shack, like power brick thing that plugs into the wall, and then I got two wires coming off of it, and I can select between, I think it's 5, 6, 7, and 12 volts, which is handy, but it's it's only like 1 amp, something like that. So I had this, and I was looking at the side, and I can get, you can see that, 5 volts at 15 amps, 12 volts at 5 amps, 150 watts. So what I did was I cut up because there's a whole bunch of MOX connectors on this one. I cut them up and just put one, and I have a drawer, and it's full of these MOX connectors, and I just keep cobbling together with power supplies. And it's really ghetto, but car stereo wiring crimps, but it works really well. And then I have my your standard 24 pin, and I might change this off, but I cut the black and the green wire out, and normally that comes out of the power supply from here and connects into here, and then if you want the power supply to turn on, you just stick a paper clip or a piece of wire between the two pins to turn on. What I did is I had this big switch. I don't know where I got this from. I got it from somewhere, and I basically soldered the wires together, and then I don't have any heat shrink tubing. I should have put heat shrink tubing on, but I just put electrical tape. So basically, it is a really, really ghetto benchtop desktop power supply. Plugs in with my 120 volts, and then I can set this down. I might 3D print a housing for this later, so I can have the power supply stuck in there, and then I can just run the wires to, say, a breadboard or something like that. I might completely just cut this off. Who knows? And then make some taps that I could stick into the pins of a breadboard or whatever. But a lot of times I don't even use it with a breadboard. I just cobble it all together, just stick the wires in there, and run it. But that's kind of crappy. But I was using this with my CB radio for a while, because it actually it makes enough voltage. 12 volts at 5 amps. 5 amps is enough to run a CB radio on. The radio was toast. It was dead. But it was enough that some parts of the radio would power up, but the backlights would come on and stuff like that. So, quite a handy thing. Especially because of the high amperage on the 12 volts that he uses for many things. But, yeah, I think one day I will 3D print a thing for it, because I was trying to zip tie these to the top, which can kind of be a pain in the rear, and then you have to worry about the fan hitting the zip tie. So a few months later, I made a box out of cardboard and gauze print duct tape, and it's basically works. It's bolted in there, and I have fan grills. It doesn't overheat. I haven't really used it I was using it to power the electronics on this 3D printer here, but I did cut off the big 24 pin connector, and I wired in. I have the two black and red just in case needed for breadboards, and I have 12 volts that I was also using with a breadboard where I can pop that in, but I can also take this off, and this is how I was just taking the two ends right here and plugging them in on this 3D printer. So I might 3D print another box. I might try to wire this in somewhere but it is pretty handy to have just floating around, and I don't have that big 24 pin anymore. And I did put the power switch up here, so that it's not bouncing around. So